Byron?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. William Byron. The only driver we all collectively took. Because if you look at the odds, Larson and Byron are both 5-1. And what really did it for me to separate, because I wasn't going to take them both unless I was going to put 50 each on them. But the reason why I decided to take Byron really over Larson was just, look, I still think overall, I think, especially now that he's had a couple of good back-to-back finishes, that he's having a better season than Larson.
Yep.
He dominated Las Vegas, which we know is important to the comparison of Kansas. And he led 57 laps in the fall of 2021 here. And last year led 9 laps and 25 laps in the 2 races for a combined 34, finishing 6th and 16th. Whereas Larson, he won that fall race, by the way, in 2021, leading 130 laps, and led 132 laps the same year in the spring, finishing 19th. Last year, 2nd and 8th, so pretty similar, a little bit better than Byron. But again, to me, it was just, and by the way, Larson was solid at Vegas too, finishing 2nd, leading 63 laps. It was just, I like the fact that he dominated Vegas, and I just think he's a little bit better right now than Larson, and that's what did it for me.
Yeah, I mean, they've both been running well. This is definitely going to be a Hendrick versus, I'm going to say Toyota, because 2311 won both races at Kansas last year, because as you said, Vegas, Byron and Larson went 1-2, I believe, in both stages. Yeah, in both stages that day. And in fact, you throw Alex Bowman in stage 2, and then in the end, they were 1-2-3. I mean, they were just untouchable in Vegas. And Vegas is going to be the closest comparison to Kansas. So if they look good there, I don't know why they wouldn't look good here. However, Toyota's won 5 of the last 7 races at Kansas, including 7 of the last 12, or 5 of the last 7, 7 of the last 12. They swept last year. They went 1, 3, 4, 5, 6 in the spring race, and 1, 2, 3, 5 in the fall. They led 265 of 534 laps, including 171 of 267 in this race. So that led me to believe you're looking at Toyota versus Hendrick this week. And I just couldn't see, because Larson, if you remember right, was going to win Vegas, if not for that late race caution. That race was his to win. And then they came down pit road, Byron beat him off, Byron ran the race, even though he had more laps led, but Larson was going to win. So I just couldn't separate those two. I thought with them being even odds, I'm like, I really just can't favor one or the other. So as a result of going with both, it cost me from the Kyle Bushes and those further back. So
yeah, because you put nearly half of your money on both of them, and I put nearly half of my. You put 44, 22 each. I put 40 on Byron. So we basically did the same thing almost by making sure that we had almost half of our money invested on those two drivers, and CJ put 46 on both total.
Yeah, and that's unfortunately the nature of this season being so unpredictable. Like we talked about last week with guys just stealing wins, it's hard to go all in on drive. I just wish we could, like we used to be able to, especially when you put 2 guys at 5-1. It's like Vegas isn't giving you very good options here, and NASCAR is not doing themselves any favor with the way these races are ending. So it's just increasingly harder and harder to bet on the sport right now because of this. Because it's like, look, there's no separation between these two. And if you take one, just because I don't feel good about how the season's gone, I know I wanted to go all in on both of them. But I know if I go all in on both of them, neither of them are going to win. If I go all in on one of the two, the other one's going to win. So it's just the way it's gone. So I just thought, let's get a win out of the way. At least if one of them wins, I got them both. But yeah, there's just not really any separation between them right now.
As far as qualifying, it does matter. The last 6 winners have started in the top 10, including on the pole and second spot. And this is a track, just like last week, this is a track where, if there's a late caution, you could see a 2-tire exchange. And the way the season's gone, that could be exactly what happens late in this race. Okay, so now there's Truex and Reddick here. And you put money on both. CJ put money on Reddick. I stayed away from both. I stayed away from Reddick. I just didn't like the odds. Now, I know he was solid last year here. He led laps. in both races, but his finishes, whether you want to say it's just coincidence, it's bad luck, it's still 30th and 35th. It is what it is. And that, no, not for me at 7-1. If you're giving me 10 or 12-1, I'll consider it. Maybe I'll do it, but not at 7. And Truex, I'm staying away from the back-to-back deal. Not to say he can't do it, because he's been really solid here. 11 top 10s in his last 12, 6 of those top 5s, a runner-up. His sweep was in 2017, so he hasn't won here since 17. And he was 6th and 5th last year. So we know he's good here. But yeah, at 7-1, it's just, to me, it's working against me with the back-to-back wins. But yeah, why'd you go with Reddick?
Well, I went with Reddick, and again, I agree with you. I don't like these odds. I just wish, this is where, again, the odds makers make this where you got to go all in like a driver or two. When NASCAR is not, it's hard to find out of 36 charter teams, find 2 drivers. That's kind of where they're putting you in a box already. These 2 should not be 7-1. However, their stats could say they are, because Reddick, the reason I went with him, yes, his finishes don't tell the whole story.
Sure.
He wrecked while leading both those races. He was winning the race both times. So he's been good there. Plus, the car he's driving is actually the car that won both races last year. It was the 45 car. Kurt Busch won in it in May. And oddly enough, Bubba Wallace was in the 45 car in the fall race and won in it. So why not 3 straight races for the 45 car with 3 different drivers? That's why I went that route. Because if he was good in the 8 car, what could he do in the 45? Similar to what we talked about with Coda. Hey, he was good in that car last year, but now he's with this 45 in Toyota. What could he do? And he won. So I thought, again, for his stats, 7-1 feels steep, and it doesn't feel right to me with Vegas. Like, hey, let's front load all these guys. Let's put all these guys that should win at 5 and 7-1, and make you pick the one. It's just so difficult to do. But I just, again, I was looking for a win, so I took him, and I agree with you on Truex. He went 54 races without a win. Is he really going to win 2 straight weeks, let alone in 6 days? I looked it up. He's gone back-to-back once in his career. 2019, he won Vegas, and then 6 days later, he won Richmond. Here we are, 6 days later, on a track that he statistically has been good at. He's got a top 10 and all but 1 Kansas start since 2017. As you said, pair of top 6s last year. He was 7th in Vegas in the spring race. So I thought, yeah, I could see him. And sometimes you've seen it too. All it takes is a win, and then you start rattling them off. Now you've got the monkey off your back. Now here you go.
Yeah.
So,
well, I was glad that I invested. Look, I invested in him pretty much the last several weeks when he was at 20-1 on the futures.
Yeah, we talked about that. All it's going to take is 1 win, and it's going to drop.
That's right.
That's what happened. So, yeah, I went that way, but it just doesn't feel right. And I get it. Yeah, you're going to put your favorites up top. I get it. But when you have 4, I could make a case like I just did for all 4 to win, and they're all within 5 and 7-1. It's like, how are you going to get people to bet on this race when it'd be like putting all the NBA teams like, oh, they're all going to be right here within 2 points of each other, and you just figure out the one.
Well, out of those 6, including Bell and Hamlin at 8, I don't think we're going to, I think we're going to see at least 2 drivers 10-1 or more from that group. Because once qualifying's over. Because I think before the race starts, we're not going to see 6 drivers between 5 and 8-1.
No.
So
this is one you'll have to bet after. And going to those next guys, Hamlin, because you have to start looking for flaws and eliminate. And it was hard. You could say, well, Larson's had bad luck, but you look at the races he's finished. I mean, like last week, he had a fast car. He just can't, or yesterday, I should say. He can't help it. A car spun in front of him. He just has had bad luck, but
3rd in his last 4 races, finishing over 30th.
Yep, that's what makes it tough, but he's had fast cars. So in Talladega, we knew he wasn't going to be anything in Talladega. But Hamlin at 8-1, and he made a good point. Hey, second and 4th last year? Yeah, the only drivers in the last 11 races that won multiple times in Kansas, 4th and 2nd respectively. However, again, you can't pick them all. And when he says his pit crew I believe it was 90% of the time he feels when he comes to pit road, his crew is going to lose some spots.
Oh yeah, they're not doing it this year.
No, that's a problem. And
well,
so
it's good that he said something, because that's what we said about Blaney. Sooner or later, you got to say something. Hamlin knows better because he's 10 years older than Blaney. So Blaney better pick up on this, because that's what you have to put it back on your pit crew, because they haven't earned it yet.
Yeah, and he called him out. And so you have that, and Hamlin's been known to speed on pit road. And then even though this year he's having, in his defense, he knows, when I pull into that box, I'm losing spots. So I have to push the envelope coming into the box and leaving the box. I have to. I've got to make up that lost ground. Well, it's into speed. So you got even more of a factor. So, and as you said at the start, Kansas is known to get you a late race restart. And if pit strategy comes into play, Hamlin has proven, and he just said it yesterday, that the pit crew is a problem. So I look at that as a flaw to where I stayed away from him, even with his finishes there last year. Is we've seen clean air be a thing this year, and we saw Vegas was hard to pass again. If he has that one bad pit stop and he's kind of mired back in deep air, I don't think he's going to get it back. So, and in the other flip side, if he has to take it more carefully on pit road, he might lose spots even more. So I thought for 8-1, with him staying that, I'm staying away. Bell, he qualifies good there, so I mean, he might be one you might want to grab early, because some of these other guys, they might fall, but he scored his first Xfinity race win there, 10th, 8th, and 3rd his last 3 races, playoff races there, 5th in the spring last year, 5th in Vegas this year. It just seems like he's running better, and this is a good track for him. So out of all those guys, like, Hamlin will be the one I punt on, and I'll take Bell, Reddick, Truex, Byron, Larson, and
top 6.
I feel like your winners. Yeah, I feel like those guys right there, the winners in it.
Probably.
I just feel, especially at a track like this, I feel like the winner's there. But we've seen how these NASCAR races go at the end. You could get a caution. Those guys play it safe. Josh Berry's going to take 2 tires, and he's going to win the race. It's just, that's how these things have gone.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, you're winning at the top. There's a reason. I just wish they would have created a little more separation with them up top.
Well, again, that's why, as you said, this is a race that you should, and we talked about qualifying is important anyway. And I went with, instead of putting money on Truex and Reddick, or even Larson, I put it both on Bell and Hamlin. I actually put a little bit more on Hamlin because of the fact, sort of like what happened last week with Truex. To me, the reason I did this, he's got, in the first, 7, 8 races, no top 5s. He's got 2 top 5s last 3. It's like he's overdue, just like Truex in my mind. There's no way Denny Hamlin at this point in the season would have no wins. And we could have said the same thing as we did with Truex. It wasn't like he dominated last week, but had a good week, got some luck, held off, won the race. I just think that Denny's time's coming. And, and I hope it comes in a situation like this where I don't have to worry about the odds being 5-1. Because 8-1 is okay for Denny Hamlin. It's not great, but it's okay, especially considering the fact that he's had 3 wins here, including 2 wins since 2019. And as you mentioned, finished 2nd and 4th last year, even though he hasn't led a lap here in the last 3 races. But he is driving a Toyota. And as we said, that's also very important.
Yep.
And by the way, CJ took Hamlin and not Bell. So you took Bell, he took Hamlin, I took them both. All right, now, as far as the top contenders, as I said, I did not take Chastain. You guys both did. I was close to taking him. And the reason I was close to taking him is the same reason I took him last week. But because it's the season it is for me, I couldn't get the win last week, of course. Of course, the late caution comes out, and he takes 4 tires. So, but I'm already used to it now, so I'm not even getting upset over it anymore. So I can see why you would take him. I just rolled the dice a little bit and went in another direction with the next 2 drivers that I'll talk about. But Chastain, 7th in both races last year, again, almost won last week. So I could see why, because to me, again, what I was saying was just like last week, it's a bargain number. You're getting him at a good price at 14-1 for a driver that has 3 top 5s in his last 6 races and runner-up last week.
Yeah, that's the only reason why. He's the points leader. You're getting the points leader for 14-1. And he wasn't great last year. I mean, he said seventh in both races. That's a solid day. 12th in Vegas scared me a little bit because they didn't look like his old, because Vegas last year he was really good. Vegas this year he was 12th. So it scared me a little bit. But as you said, 100 laps, nearly 100 laps just yesterday, and runner up. I just feel, given the points leader at 14-1, it felt good to take him. I would have rather taken Kyle Busch, who we'll get to. But again, as the points leader at 14-1, that sold it for me. So that's why I went in his direction.
Yeah, because Kyle's, again, what to like about him was just like last week, you're getting good odds at 16-1. He's had a decent history here with 10 top fives in 30 races, couple of wins, third last year in this race. Didn't fare all that great at Vegas. And he's kind of been hit or miss, to tell you the truth. He's still not as consistent as you would like. That could be coming, but he does have 2 wins on the season, which is a big step up from the disappointing season last season. But for me, I haven't really been having luck with Kyle this year, so I just decided to pass on him. But CJ actually put some money on Kyle.
And like I said, I almost did too, because remember I said about Reddick. Reddick was leading when he crashed in the same car last year. So in RCR as a whole, Austin Dillon, I didn't take him because, again, I was out of plenty by the time I got that far down. 100-1, 10th in both races in 2021, 11th in the 2020 playoff race, and 13th and 14th last year, which to me is very solid for Austin Dillon. So RCR has had a pretty good package there. Reddick crashed both races last year while leading, and Kyle Busch won in May of 2021 there. His brother won the race last year, so maybe Busch just keeps the Busch name winning the spring race at Kansas. So 16-1 was a good number on him. I like it better than Chastain, but Chastain has better success here recently. I know Kyle won Talladega, but Chastain's been more consistently up front, and you get the points leader for 14-1. So that was the only differential between the two, or I would have liked to have them both.
All right, now we'll get to actually 2 out of the 3 at 18-1 that I put the remaining $20 on my 100, and I went with Blaney and Wallace over Harvick. Harvick, I just didn't like the combination that he hasn't done well here recently. Last year was pretty bad. And then his last 3 races, 19, 21, 20, that's not good. He's got a pretty good history here with 3 wins and 12 top fives and all that. And he's led almost 1,000 laps, and you're getting 18-1. But I just figured that combination was, all right, maybe I could take a week off so then he can win this week. Blaney and Wallace, though, I went with Blaney last week, and we talked about it. It was the odds. It was, these are the type of drivers that have been winning, and he had a very successful week. Even though he didn't win, he was there. And I don't think anybody thought he was going to be contending for the win last week. And and he's better this week at this track, and he's still getting 18-1. So I'm like, and I know Ford is behind the 8 ball here, but still 3rd, 2nd, 7th. He's a streaky driver, Blaney. And now he's streaking well again. And so why not go and give him a chance? And Wallace, the deciding factor, even though it's not the same car, he won last year leading 58 laps. He was 4th in Vegas. Yep. So there's something about these tracks that he's feeling pretty good at. That's the reason why I threw I threw $10 on him as well.
Yeah, and I said he was good at Vegas in the spring. And remember the fall last year at Vegas?
Yeah.
He was good. It's when him and Kyle Larson incident came. They wrecked while, I think it was 1st and 2nd. They were running up front. So whatever reason, these mama have tracks that are shaped like this are his bread and butter. So his bread and butter on a cookie cutter track, I'm going to go with him at 18-1. It just feels like I said, the Toyota car. He's got Reddick now with him, who knows to get way around there. He also knows how to wreck, but he knows the lead. So I just feel like the combo, 23-11's got some momentum at Kansas. So especially for Bubba in a year, so you don't have to rely on your return in Atlanta or Daytona later. You won here last year. You win here again, and you could get yourself into a playoff spot. So this is a good opportunity for him. And for 18-1, I thought it was a fair number to snag him.
Yeah, I mean, Harvick, Or do you think
He was a tough one because, like you said, I just feel like the whole Stewart Haas camp does not have race winning speed right now. I just don't feel like they have it. Even on a late pit strategy, they're getting closer to the point as we keep getting more and more new winners that if you don't have a shot at winning, I feel like you kind of got to position yourself to maximize points. Because like Truex mentioned last year, he was fourth in points and he missed the playoffs. So you kind of risk the gamble and everything is like, hey, 2 tires, 4 tires, maybe let's play it safe and let's get out there and let's get out of here to a good finish. We don't have the car to win, but we can get a top 5. I feel like they're starting to enter that zone. So I just don't feel comfortable at 18-1 with him on that. When Wallace is the same odds, who's proven he can win there.
Logano 22-1. I was the only reason I was thinking about Logano was because you're getting 22-1 with Joey Logano, which I think is a little ridiculous to tell you the truth. And he does have 3 wins at the racetrack, but he had some problems in Vegas, and last year he was really bad. Most importantly, so he didn't do anything here last year, and he's coming off a 31st and a 30th in his last 2, and 3 of his last 4 are in the 30s. But still, you are getting 22-1, so that's something I was considering. And then the 35-1 shots, you got Gibbs, Suarez, and Keselowski. And I was also thinking about Keselowski, just because he's had a couple wins there, and he's seems to be back into a nice, couple of races back to back, both top 10s, and he's getting 35-1. Suarez, I don't see anything special here with him, and he's still kind of in a slump. And Gibbs, just because he's a rookie and all that stuff, I just decided to stay away from him. Even though he is doing okay, he still does not have a race better than 9th this year. But again, out of all those drivers we've talked about, you did put a few bucks on Gibbs.
Yeah, I just felt because of the Toyota, the factor, and he had a top 5 going in Dover. If the team got the gas tank filled, I really do feel like he would have had a shot at winning that thing in the end, because you never know how that final pit stop would have came out. But he had to save fuel because they were 7 laps short, and he went from top 5 to outside the top 10, and he got himself back around it. So Toyota, as I said, Kyle Busch won in this car in 2021. Granted, it wasn't the next gen, but I just feel like he's just getting closer and closer. And I'm just going in with Toyota versus Hendrick again this week, and 35-1. I would be remiss if I skipped out on him when he's that far down. So, plus, as you said, there's no really other long shots that are worth anything to take here. And the one thing too, and Penske, as you said, I thought about Logano. I mean, 22-1 was a good number, but he's finished 15th or worse in 6 of his last 8 there. And on the season, he's been 30th or worse in 3 of his last 4 weeks. So they're reeling. They're going backwards. Cindric, his last 5 finishes on the season, 28th, 19th, 33rd, 26th, and 26th. I mean, he's 100-1. You think, hey, Penske guy 100-1, just take him anyways. But there's nothing about those results that tell me, oh, that guy's going to win on Sunday. So Penske's got to get it turned around. Blaney, good week last week. Can he keep it up? We'll see what he could do. So he was a smart play at 18. But past that, as you said, there's just really nobody there. And the one thing that I did notice in 2011, every Kansas winner has won a championship minus Hamlin or Bubba. That's it. Everybody else that's won there, they've won a championship in the Cup Series. So that scared me a little bit with Gibbs and being a rookie. It's like, well, these guys that win there are all veterans. And if you really go back since the track opened, Hamlin, Ryan Newman, Mark Martin, Greg Biffle, Joe Nemechek, and Bubba are the only drivers to win at Kansas and have no Cup titles to their name. And those are some pretty good drivers. I mean, Newman, Mark Martin, Greg Biffle, Hamlin. I mean, those. So do I really think Gibbs is going to come out here and win? Not necessarily, but 35-1, they could gamble late. You never know.
I mean, taking a long shot is always, especially for just a few bucks, there's nothing wrong with that. And if you look at it too, remember when he finished 31st at Talladega, he had the same issues. It was running out of gas. So
twice now, yeah. Granted, that wasn't their fault. That was the extra overtime. Sure. But you take the gas out of it. Yeah. He's 2 straight top 5s coming in this week. Yeah, absolutely. So you get him for 35-1, which, hey, I think that's saying a lot for a rookie driver. And I mean, you get Austin Cindric, who won the Daytona 500 last year. Granted, you're not comparing Daytona to Kansas, but he's with Team Penske. He's 100-1,
Yes.
and you're getting a rookie driver at 35-1. And
I was thinking about that. That was the one long shot that I circled. That I was like, pretty decent last year, good at Vegas, 100-1. So yeah, so I might even. I mean, you know what? I think that even if you just wait on Cindric to see how he qualifies, you're still going to end up with 35 or 50-1.
Yeah, I don't think they can chop it less than 50-1. If you're at 100-1 now, I think he's still, even if he's on the pole, I think the most he goes is 50-1. I don't know how you could take someone from 100-1 to 20-1 just because of the pole.
They could do it.
They could. It's Vegas. They'll screw it up somehow. But yeah, I mean, you just got to feel like him and these sophomore drivers in NASCAR got to start figuring this out soon because they're going backwards. Harrison Burton's not done much. He's not done much. So maybe this is their week.
And Gibbs finished first and third in his last two Xfinity Series races.
I think he won a couple ARCA races there too. So,
what's that?
I think he won a couple ARCA races there too. So yeah, they got a. Yep. So it's good track for him.
Briscoe and Berry are 65-1, but Briscoe hasn't shown much as a Cup driver. He does have an Xfinity win at this track. He was on a nice run until last week. It's interesting that his odds, did you notice his future odds, dropped from 80 to 50?
That's why I put another 100 on him just in case.
So there you go.
I noticed that.
Yeah. Anyway, and then Berry takes over for Bowman, who finished third in Vegas. So take a look at that. We mentioned Cindric. Buescher, by the way, has a 9th and a 3rd in his last two races. 3 top 10s out of 14. Almirola has 7 top 10s, but a lot of them were earlier on in his career. You mentioned Dillon with 5 top 10s. Jones has 3 top 5s in 13, but he hasn't really fared well there lately. And most of the other guys have done nothing. All right.
One of those weeks. Yep.
Yeah, it is. So it, and it could just be one of those races too. Let's hope not. We have Darlington after this.
Yes. Darlington will be next Sunday.
So Darlington and then New Hampshire.
No, North Wilkesboro. The All-Star race.
Wilkesboro, the All-Star race. Okay, so we
and
have,
then,
and then the big day.
That. Yep.
All right. So Darlington, what are we doing at Darlington? What are we looking forward to there?
That's the throwback race. So it'll be an old school type race. I'm sure. May. I saw Kansas supposed to be in the 80s this weekend, so I would assume it's gonna be hot, slick.
Well, didn't they change? Because they were doing. Those races used to be just dead boring.
Yeah.
Where did they change it to the daytime last year?
Yep.
Did it get any better?
A little bit, yeah. It also it was a little bit cooler, and I remember there was some cloud cover. But if it's South Carolina sun beating on that track in May, you could definitely. I think it would improve that show. So.
What's that similar to, Darlington?
Homestead, I'd say, is probably your closest.
But nothing this year so far?
No, the only thing you look at is probably Richmond because the tire fall off. Maybe a little bit of Dover, not style of race or anything like that. It'd be more or less the tire fall off because Darlington, your tire is going to fall off like a cliff the longer you go. So you're just going to look at guys that had their cars better on a longer run than they do shorter, which seems to be the same guys every week anyways who get that way. So I don't expect much different. I think the usual suspects that are good at Darlington are going to be good this time around.
You know that 3 of the top 5 drivers in the standings are 14-1, 18-1, and 18-1 this week. So
goes to show you that it also goes to show you how I think points are still relevant, as I said before, because the playoff point aspect by the time you get to the regular season finale. But it also goes to show you how the points are kind of irrelevant. Because I bet you if you ask most NASCAR fans who's leading the points right now, they probably have no idea.
No.
I feel like they never talk about points. We talk about more wins and playoff standings, not the actual points. But yeah. Chastain, Bell, and like those are the guys right now that are up top, and they don't really even talk about them.